All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be volume 1 in a new series that I'm starting called Walk Circumspectly. And of course, it's an allusion to the scripture in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15, where it says, "See that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." And the reason why I'm starting this series, and of course, volume 1 will be featuring Mr. Mike Scott, at least currently of the Philadelphia 76ers, maybe not for much longer, is because he decided to do something that a lot of cats out there who attend football games or baseball games should already know. That being that when you decide to go to the opposing team stadium dressed up in the jersey of your football team, who of course is the opponent that day, anything can happen because football fans love to imbibe. They love to drink alcohol. When I was a child, my father used to take me to many football games back in the early 90s. The first football game that I attended, I'll never forget, was the New York Jets versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I believe that it was the career debut of Mr. Blair Thomas, who was a highly touted running back in Penn State in the late 80s going into the early 90s. He was drafted, I think it was number 1 overall by the New York Jets, maybe number 2 overall, I can't quite remember. And he had a great day that day. But what I always remember was how loud and how rowdy all the fans were in Giant Stadium. I mean, totally out of control. And one of the main components of fandom that always stuck out in my mind, no matter what game we went to, was that white people really take their football seriously. I'm talking about like a religion. So-called black people tend to go to these games to root on their team. The so-called Caucasian goes there to have a religious experience. They're trying to connect with some higher power that's dominated by the pigskin. I'm not quite sure what it's all about, but you'll see them there in 10-degree weather with no shirts on, face painted, all that, screaming, yelling, drinking 3 beers at once, getting into fights. So when you decide, as Mike Scott decided, to attend a road game with your team's jersey on, you know what could happen. Especially when we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, who, for those of us who follow the NFC East for the last 25, 30 years like I have, each team in the NFC East has a franchise identity. The New York Giants are viewed as being the corporate team. They're buttoned up. I would never associate them with an act like we're going to see involving Mr. Mike Scott, where certain fans tried to bum rush the fan of another team after putting on a stunt like the Philadelphia Eagles fans put on, really trying to deride the death of Sean Taylor, or allegedly ridicule the death of Sean Taylor. No one would ever associate the New York Giants fan base or believe something like that if that were the allegation, unless it was on video camera. The Dallas Cowboys franchise has always been associated with being the pretty boy franchise. They have the fan base that's international, at the very least all across the United States. The Cowboy fans, they probably have the largest fan base interstate-wise, so they will not even lower themselves to do something like that. The Washington Redskins are known as being the national franchise, so of course they're associated with the nation's capital. They can get down and dirty a little bit, at least more than the Giants and the Cowboys, but they try to assume an air of regality because they represent the quote-unquote capital of the United States. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles fans, though, anything goes. Everybody knows that. That's always been the case. No disrespect to many of the brothers who might come on my channel who are from Philly and who are Eagles fans, but we all know that no one would ever put anything past the Philadelphia Eagles fan base when it comes to their hijinks. Mike Scott should have known that before he went to the stadium, and as a matter of fact, as I believe they're going to report here, he was on Twitter before the game. He was warned by certain fans that he should not come to the game with his Washington Redskins jersey on. He said, "I'm going to do it. What could happen?" And I think that he was offended by what he saw in the display that was put up by the Philadelphia Eagles fans trying to mock the death of Sean Taylor. One thing led to another, and we're going to see what happens. But once again, brothers, we always have to walk circumspectly. Know what type of environment we're going into. We know that alcohol is part of the recipe of having a good time in most of these stadiums. And to be quite frank with you, there's a reason why alcohol is called courage juice, because it makes people who normally would not do that type of shit, all of a sudden they want to catch wreck. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
It's TMZ Sports. Evan here with Van Lathan.
What up?
Michael J. Babcock.
What's up?
We got a lot of Antonio Brown stuff. I know you guys want to see that. We're going to get to that in a minute. Huge stuff, by the way, especially stemming from that phone conversation you recorded with John Gruden. There could be a lot of problems there, but we're going to start with some insane video of an NBA player, a guy who plays for the Philadelphia 76ers, in a brawl before the Philadelphia Eagles football game this weekend.
And no disrespect to Mike Scott, but just watching him as a member of the Philadelphia 76ers, he's one of them cats that when he come in the game, you look at him and say, that's an ignorant ass nigga right there. I've never seen the cat commit a crime, but he's one of them dudes that when you look at him and say, it's very easy for him to get caught up in dumb shit.
Knocking people out left and right, all on video. Watch this. The giant guy you're seeing in the center of this is Mike Scott. He's 31 years old. He's 6'8". He's wearing a Redskins jersey because he's from the Virginia area. And he went to the game to go watch his Redskins take on the Eagles in Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, he's being attacked. He's fighting a flock of Eagles fans. And you can see, go back to the top of this video again. The footage starts off where Scott is being surrounded, and he throws his overhand right, clocking his dude in the head. And then as it's being broken up, watch this. Bang with the...
Now look at all this dumb shit. All Mike Scott has to do is catch one of these clowns right on the jaw. They fall back, hit their head on the pavement, and now he could be going to prison for murder just because he got caught up in his feelings due to them mocking the death of Sean Taylor. It's just not worth it, man. I mean, to me, as I've become an adult, I just find sports viewership much more enjoyable in the comfort of my home. Every once in a while, go to the game, sure. But football games especially, I can miss that. I've just seen so much shit break out at football games. It's not even worth it.
Again, sending the guy to the ground, and all of a sudden he's being attacked and he's being surrounded. Right. Now he's ready to fight everybody, and I think everybody's probably afraid because they see this guy is big and he's athletic and he already crushed one.
They're not afraid. They've already gotten their intake of Budweiser. They're ready to go.
Guys,
right.
So
they don't want really, Mike Scott.
So nobody's really quick to rush in after that. But man, what a situation! You're talking about a hometown guy, a Philadelphia 76ers player, fighting Philadelphia Eagles fans in Philadelphia. What is going on here?
What's going on is a bunch of ruckus being brought right there. Those Eagles fans look like they're trying to get it. Okay. But when he turns around and squares up, it doesn't seem like they want it anymore.
Does this have anything to do with the coffin that was brought?
That's a good point, Mike Babcock. Excellent point.
Because I saw some Eagles fans who had what they were calling Sean Taylor's coffin.
Some people were calling Sean Taylor's coffin.
As we can see right here, Mike Scott is adjacent to the coffin, so I do believe that this is what set him off.
Sean Taylor's coffin at a tailgate had like...
And for those of you who don't know, Sean Taylor was a very promising safety for the Washington Redskins who was murdered in his home during a home invasion back in the mid-2000s. I believe that a couple of people broke into his house. He confronted them. They shot him and he bled out in his home. But his career was very promising. He was like a 2000s version of Ronnie Lott. That dude used to just take people's heads off.
So here's the context with that, right? Now, there was a coffin with a Redskins jersey over it at the game, but there's a debate going on. Nobody really knows for sure if that coffin was specifically brought to mock Sean Taylor or not.
If it was, I'm glad. Maybe I'm wrong for saying I'm glad Mike Scott went over there, and I hope he punched whoever did that.
Well, I'm not glad about that. If you're one of those dudes who are that sensitive, you should not attend football games. Because you never know what could happen. You think that you're just going to put somebody in their place. Brothers, at the end of the day, you can't punch stupidity out of people. Just try to avoid them. If they approach you, of course, we all have to defend ourselves. But shit like this is just silly. That's why I'm calling this series Walk Circumspectly. Because a lot of times in life, we know that we're heading into a piece of shit environment or an atmosphere that you never know what could pop off. So we have to have our guard up. I remember when I was young, my father would always tell me and my sister, or let me correct myself, he would always rebuke the hell out of us and say, why y'all two always walking around with your damn headphones on out in the street? You have to be aware of what's going on around you at all times. And that's just a part of life. As you get older, you learn about this environment that we're in. You learn about this world that we're in. Everybody's not going to be out for your best interest. Everyone is not kind. Everyone is not good. And when you attend football games, especially rivalry games, there are going to be people there who don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit. They're going to do whatever, say whatever to try to piss off the opposition's fan base, to try to totally disrespect the opposition because they live for it. I mean, outside of soccer, football fans, American football fans in the United States are probably the most fervent, especially Caucasian football fans, once again.
We don't know that for a fact.
I'm saying if they were, because I find that to be absolutely disgusting.
That's worth a smack
This is
in the face.
football. It's a game.
Yeah, that's worth a punch in the mouth right there.
Yeah, that frustrates me if that's what they were doing. I know the Phillies fan.
It's worth a punch in the mouth if you have bail money, sure.
They have a reputation for kind of pushing the limit a little bit and being really passionate about their team. But Sean Taylor lost his life, man. Like, that would be taking it too far. If that were the case, if that's why Mike Scott was mad.
Right, but can a Philadelphia Eagles fan really take anything too far? And again, I'm sure I have a lot of cats from Philly on my channel. They're going to get upset by what I'm saying. But we've known this for years. There is nothing beneath a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And I'm not a fan of any team in the NFL. Before cats say, oh, he's a Giants fan, that's why he's saying that. I'm not a fan of any team in the NFL. When I was a kid, I followed the 49ers, the Giants, the Jets. There were certain teams that I preferred to see win, but as an adult, I follow no team. I'm a fan of no team. I just watch the sport for enjoyment. But we know that certain fan bases, they have a certain reputation that follows them. After all, the Philadelphia Eagles fan base is the same fan base that cheered when Michael Irvin appeared to be paralyzed, laying on the turf at Veterans Stadium back in, I think, 1999 or 2000, whenever it was.
I'm fully with him. I hope he hits some people because of that.
All right, so we should say this. Nobody was arrested. Nobody's been charged with a crime. I do want to go back to the video again because after Mike knocks that first guy to the ground, you can see this guy who's like a fraction of Mike's size try to run in there. Look at that guy. You got to give 91 some credit there.
I don't give 91 any credit. Number 91 was a bitch. He was not trying to fight Mike Scott. He was trying to sucker punch the black dude with the black t-shirt on who was pushing Mike Scott back and who happened to have his back turned. Not only did he try to sucker punch that guy once, he tried to sucker punch him twice.
Trying to run in and defend his guy.
I mean, yeah, he's not a look 91.
Look at 91 with the Fletcher Cox jersey on. He's not trying to fight Mike Scott, but for some reason these idiots at the Tammuz Network are trying to give him some type of bravery credit. Watch what he's about to do here. He's going to run up behind the brother who has his back turned, who's trying to push Mike Scott away, and sucker punch him on the side of the head. He couldn't even knock him down. Then he's going to come back and try to hit him again.
Get it, like
Trying to get it, and he knows Mike Scott's going to just rip him.
people like cowards though, but he
had to defend his boy.
He got out of the way when Mike Scott turned around though.
Yeah.
91.
There was no turning around because Mike Scott was facing him the whole time. He got out of the way and ran away because he's a coward.
But 91, look, people ain't cowards, man.
You're on 90.
Yes, actually, he was a coward.
You're running in with the wild, like there's a weird punch there with the right.
He's trying to get it.
Wasn't a weird punch, he just can't fight.
He went out the screen though.
He's back in the screen. He's back in trying to throw punches again.
Yeah, and he hit the black man again. The big fat dude with the black t-shirt, he busted him in the back of the head again.
Yeah.
So I saw on Twitter, somebody said to Mike Scott, Mike, don't wear the jersey, the Redskins jersey, to the Eagles game because some of those guys are crazy.
Yeah, that's
and Mike
true.
Scott said, man, what are they going to do?
Yeah,
Fast
remember,
forward a few hours
Eagles
later,
fans are the same
he's fighting the entire Eagles parking lot.
fans are the same people who have punched multiple police horses in the parking lot. This is true. We've reported on.
Aren't they the same fan base that was eating horse manure after they won a Super Bowl? The Eagles fans?
Times that Eagles fans during the pregame tailgates, they get rowdy and they sometimes punch police horses. That's
thug it out.
Yeah, they work themselves into a fervor because it's a ritualistic religious experience. Once again, I don't go to these stadiums to be around people who view sporting events in an inordinate way. A sporting event is meant to be a pastime, it's meant to be for entertainment. But it's very obvious that it's a major component of this society because it does have ritualistic or quote-unquote religious significance to a certain portion of the population.
Thugs. They're thugs. They got Fletcher Cox jersey on being a thug. It's
Yeah.
thugs and animals I see right here.
Fortunately, it doesn't seem like anybody got hurt, so that's the silver lining in all this. But yeah, the Eagles won the game 33-27.
They came back.
I'm sorry,
It was
32-27.
bleak for a while, but they came back somehow.
Deshaun Jackson's too fast, man.
We're gonna get into that a little bit later.
Never watched.
Look at this fool Van Lathan. He's still trying to perpetuate this nonsense, acting as if he's not watching the NFL because of Colin Kaepernick. But he knew that Deshaun Jackson is still a great player. No, nigga, you watching. But I understand, you got to be woke for TV.
Watch yourself.
But anyway, brothers, once again, walk circumspectly. Try to avoid the dumb shit. In life, we're all going to be confronted by dumb shit. But nonsense like this could have been avoided. And if this cat Mike Scott was a regular black man, who knows what might have happened. I'm pretty sure he'd be locked up right now. But anyway, peace.